All right, guys. So I've tried to show this before in the past that Arch is easy to install, but unfortunately there were a few things that I had to make some changes to just to make sure that we can cover that entire process. In this situation, what we're going to do is hopefully be able to dual boot Arch Linux, as well as have an easy to install operating system that you can become accustomed to. Sure, Arch isn't perfect and there's going to be some complications, but if we go along and just do a simple process where our end goal is to just be able to play some video games and then grow and learn how to use the system over time with some hand holding at the beginning, you should be just fine. So first things first, let's go ahead and go over to our web browser. I'm going to use Google Chrome in this situation. And we're going to go to rufus.ie to download Rufus. Rufus takes a disk image. You know what? Now that I'm thinking about it, most of you probably don't know what a disk image is. Back in the day, we had CDs, right? And they were these silvery on one side and then had like a logo or something like that on the other side. Well, that held information that was stored on an ISO until we decided to burn it to that CD. Well, we don't have CDs now because American Online used them all up. So now we just use a USB. It's renewable. You don't have to burn it one time and then if the information becomes irrelevant, burn another one. So we're going to go ahead and put that onto a USB drive. But Rufus is the program that most people should be using to go ahead and put that type of information on. So this way we can make a bootable Linux installer. So what we have right here is the download link after we scroll through the advertisements for Rufus. And we're going to go ahead and click this top one for standard Windows x64. If you have an older computer, like we're talking really old, like pre-2010, then you're probably going to be using this x86. But x64 is going to be relevant to most of you. Go ahead and click X on this advertisement and Rufus is downloaded and ready to go. The next thing we're going to want to do is because we're going to be installing Arch is we want to download that Arch ISO so that we can put it onto the USB drive and then install it to a separate drive on our system. So we're going to go to archlinux.org. This is a very valuable page to know that it exists when it comes to archlinux.org because it has things like the wiki and forums that you can go through and get a bunch of information from and have a lot of questions. You can probably just check here for the answer. Otherwise, you can go onto the forums and ask people. In most cases, people are happy to help. If you're having a hard time finding that type of help, though, if you pop down to the description of this video, you'll find our Discord. We're slowly growing a community of people that love Linux and love gaming inside of Linux. And most of us are happy to help inside of there. You'll find me providing answers. We're not necessarily going to give answers, right away. But we'll definitely reply to you and try to help you debug your issue. So we're going to click download at the top right, and then we're going to type control. We're going to hold Control and F and type in United States. And then the mirror that I find works best for me when I decide to use it is this kernel.org one. You can use any one of these. They all work relatively the same. Click on that kernel.org and you're going to be looking for the file that ends in .iso. The other files are kind of irrelevant to you in this situation. We're going to go ahead and download that. It shouldn't take too long. If for some reason, though, you are having a problem where it's taking an eternity to download, usually for me, it takes about 35 to 40 minutes. If we open up another tab and we go to deluge-torrent.org, we can go ahead and use my preferred torrent software. Torrenting isn't anything horrible. You're not downloading a car here. It's a way of sharing files between computers. In this situation, how that works is just like what we did there, where we're downloading it from kernel.org. A torrent downloads from multiple people across the internet that have the fastest connection to your computer. So this way you can download bits and pieces of those files. We go to download, and then we go here to Windows, and then we're going to click the one that says .exe, and we're going to go ahead and download Deluge. And that's a torrenting software. I had used uTorrent in my previous tutorial. Unfortunately, people weren't really a huge fan of the fact that I used uTorrent. I was going for something that people would commonly know about, but that didn't seem to work out too well. And I understand the points to it. So we'll go ahead and show Deluge. It's a fantastic piece of software. And when you go through the installation process, unlike uTorrent, it's not going to try and install a bunch of bloatware onto your system. Since we're trying to keep Windows alive, using Deluge is not going to add extra things like McAfee or anything like that. We're going to go ahead and click next, install it like you would any other program in your Windows environment. And then once that's done, we'll be able to show you how to do the that process of downloading the torrent. All right, once that install is finished, we're just going to go ahead and click this magnet link option right here and click Open Deluge. It's going to go through asking a few questions here. We can go ahead and close this right there. And we're going to click Add. And then that will also download the file relatively quickly as well. In many situations, it's going to be faster than that, clicking on one of those links, at least in my personal experience. In this situation, we're just seeding out the same file because it already exists, because we had downloaded it from the kernel.org. All right, next we're going to do File Explorer. So we're going to come down here, click on File Explorer, and click on Downloads. And then we're double clicking on Rufus. Click Yes. Click No. All right, so in this situation, I don't have any USB devices. You may already have USB devices loaded up. It just depends when it comes down to, you know, what you have plugged into your computer. You're going to want to use a USB device that has nothing on it of value, or you've already transferred everything over to another drive or device. We're going to go ahead and insert that into our computer. I'm going to put it inside here on my USB hub. And see how it pops up right here. This already has a Windows ISO already installed on it, so we can go ahead and erase that. Then we're going to take a look for boot selection. Make sure it says disk or ISO image. We're going to click select on the right hand side. It should auto open up to downloads. If it doesn't, just click downloads. We're going to select the ISO that we want to install. This works for anything Fedora, Ubuntu, doesn't matter what it is, Pop OS. Have a ball. You can do it with all of them. Naming the volume doesn't really matter. Nothing else here is relevant to us at this point in time. We're going to go ahead and click start. We're going to write it as an ISO image. DD is another option. When it comes to DD though, it's destroy disk. In that scenario, what we're doing is we're using the entire disk to instead of just like, so as an example, this is 32 gigs, right? If we write as an ISO image, the remaining space we can actually use to put files on. But we're going to go ahead and just write it as an ISO image. Click OK. Newer version, Syntat, just go ahead and click yes. It's perfectly fine. And then this is going to warn us that it's going to destroy everything that's on that drive. We're going to go ahead and click OK. And it's going to start that process. This is going to take about 5-6 minutes to run through. While that is being done, we're going to go over here to start, and we're going to type in disk man, and it's going to bring up here, create and format hard disk partition. We're trying to make sure that we keep Windows installed, right? We don't want to destroy our Windows environment. In this situation, we're going to go ahead and click C, and it's going to bring it up here for this C drive, right? So if we were to click on F, it'll jump us over to where the F drive is. When it comes to C, we're going to go ahead and click that. We're going to right click on it and go to properties. This right here says that it's a Kingston drive. We don't want to wipe the Kingston drive. In my scenario, the only drive I have installed that's Kingston is also the one that is running this disk or this OS. If we go over here to Windows, we can see that there's a bunch of other drives that are here. This right here is going to be the other Windows install that is on the 512 that we just put in. If we go to properties, we can go ahead and take a look at the hardware itself. That's the whole hardware list. I can never find it in this daggone thing. Where's it at? It's in here somewhere. All right. Anyways, this is the F drive. So that's where we're going to be installing stuff to. So if we go to disman, really? You're going to do this to me? I hate Windows so much. So with the F drive, this is the one that we're going to be replacing. If we right click it, go to properties, we can see that it is a WDC. So that's a Western Digital. And then it's right here. We have SN730 512 gig. So holding on to that type of information is important. We'll also notice that it's the only 512 gig that I have installed in this computer, at least to my knowledge. Yeah, it's the only 512 gig that I have installed on this computer. So those are just going to be little pieces that are valuable to you to keep in mind when you're making when we're installing Arch Linux. I am just stumbling over my words tonight, but that's okay. All right, so at this point, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and click close on all of that. This is the moment where, even though we're going to be dual booting, a perfect example was actually a stream that we did last night at the time of this recording. And somehow my entire Windows installation just got destroyed. It got completely knocked out. One thing to take a look at real quick, especially if you have multiple disks, and I think this is the culprit, we're going to find out here in a second. I only had two partitions. I had my main partition and then this 16 megabyte partition. I didn't have the other two, which one of them controls the here we go, GPT EFI system partition. I believe that is the bootloader partition, if I remember correctly. I may be wrong. If that's not there, you're going to have some troubles. So if that's not there, pop on into the Discord, ask me how I fixed it, and we can go through that process. But go to start, click on the power button, click power, hover over restart, hold left shift, press restart while you're still holding that left shift. It can take a long time for it to run. Sometimes it's quick like this, but just dedicate yourself to that button until this screen appears. Then it's going to say use a device. All right. We're going to be looking for the USB installer that apparently decided to not show up. That's perfectly fine. Don't know why it's doing that. This is just gonna be one of them videos, isn't it? This is showing all my other drives. Alrighty, so we're gonna go ahead and continue to Windows, exit and continue to Windows. Follow along with this. I'm gonna put in the video here the common hotkeys for boot option, or boot menu. Take a look at it. Find your motherboard's manufacturer or the manufacturer of your computer. So if it's HP, it's gonna be F11, I believe. In this situation where it's gigabyte or gigabit Aorus, it's F8 with a or F12 with an Asus motherboard. You're going to be spamming F8. We're going to go ahead and click exit. I'm going to spam F12. We're just going to keep spamming F12, and eventually it's going to pop on up. Part of the reason why I don't stop when things go wrong in videos is because I want you to have that, see that things aren't perfect. Things just aren't always going to be how you would prefer them to be. And that's okay. That's part of computers. That's part of the fun. So things don't always end well, and that's okay. I'm going to scroll down here to this UEFI USB disk. This is going to be mine. We're going to go ahead and click enter on that, and then we're going to have a few options. So we have Arch Linux install medium, Arch Linux install medium with speech, memtest, EFI shell, and then reboot into firmware interface. That's going to be your BIOS. So that's one quick way to reboot back into your BIOS if you need to change any settings, such as like drive priorities, things like that. We're just going to go with a straight up simple install. So we're going to go ahead and click enter on install Arch Linux. Now, this process does take a little bit of time. It's going to be copying over required files to your RAM. And so that's going to take a little bit to run, but we'll greet you when we get to the screen that is going to be the next step in this process for installing Arch Linux. So we'll see in that one, which is now. This is the part when it comes to Arch Linux that's going to be deeply involved, right? We have to manually enter in the commands from the installation guide and slowly build the entire system. So the first thing that we're going to want to do is type in the word Arch and then install, right? Because that's going to start this installation process. Good Lord have mercy. Arch install. And then it's going to load a bunch of information, and we're going to have to manually build the system with a pre-compiled setup. There is a harder way to install it. That's what most people are referring to when they say that it's really hard to install Arch. Thankfully, there's just an installer. Sure, it's not a fancy, UI, but it is still nevertheless very valuable to have. So the first thing we're going to do is if you have a different language, this is where you would want to go ahead and select which language. The percentages is how much of a percent of the interface is in those languages. We're obviously in English. Location, this is where you can set your keyboard or your local language or encoding. So that if you need to adjust those things, do that. I don't need to. Mirrors and repositories. We're going to go ahead and press enter on this and then select region. And in my situation, I'm going to press up 5 times on the keyboard, on the arrow key, and I have the United States. Optional repositories. Do not ever select testing. You will have a bad time. You're going to have a bad time. If you select testing, it's not going to work out. All right. Multi-lib, though, is very much so required. We're going to go ahead and press enter on that. Multi-lib is going to be where things like Steam exists. So if you don't enable it now, you'll have to go in and enable it later on by loading into Nano to edit it. And we're just going to go ahead and enable it now to make our lives easier. All right, we're going to go ahead and click back. Disk configuration, press enter. And then partitioning, we're going to press enter. And then use best effort default partition layout. Press enter on that. And then what we're going to do is we're going to find that drive that we had beforehand. So we have that SDBQNTY512. That's going to be the drive that we're going to install everything onto. Anything that's on here is going to be deleted and replaced. Another way to be able to tell is if you look over to the right of the name of the drive, it says /dev/NVMe0N1. The one below it is 1N1. 0 and 1 is going to be the one on the top. For every motherboard I've had 4 different motherboards. The one on the top is going to be your 0 and 1. The one on the bottom is going to be that 1 and 1. So if you know where the position of an NVMe is, that's how you tell that. When it comes to SSDs, there's not really there's A, B, C, D, E. You just gonna have to kind of know a little bit more about your drive. And then what your size and whatnot is. This is obviously the USB that we're using to install Arch with. We're going to go ahead and press enter. We're going to select BTRFS. Would you like BTRFS subvolumes with a default structure? We're going to go ahead and click no. And would you like to use compression? We're going to go ahead and disable copy on write. And then would you like to create a separate home partition? No. All right, we're going to go to back. Disk encryption. I don't use disk encryption because if something goes wrong, I want to be able to access from another drive or a different computer the files that are on that drive. I don't have anything super hyper important. Swap. We're going to leave that enabled. See how it says swap on ZRAM enabled? If it's disabled, enable it. Bootloader. We're going to go ahead and click enter, and we're going to select Grub. We ran into some issues from using systemd on the previous night's stream. If you're watching this during a stream, and having Grub would have made my life a lot easier. So I've found some value to continuing with a little bit more of an older and tried and true method when it comes to Grub. All right, host name. We're going to go with calling this the archive, but let's see, archiver, because this is my computer, and then archive is a whole nother set of computers. You name it whatever you want to name it, or just leave it what it is. Root password. If you're going to set a root password, have it be a separate password than what you're going to use for your user account. You can log into the root user and you can do a lot of damage. So I generally recommend that people skip it, especially if you're new to it. And when you're old into it and you've been doing Linux for a long time, I still recommend that you skip it because we don't need to play inside of that environment. All right, add a user. This is going to be lowercase. Mine's going to be MoyDee. And my password is going to be at least 4 characters. All right. Should MoyDee be a super user? Sudo. This is going to be in that same vein as having access to root. So sudo is super user do. So requesting from the system to do something on your behalf, be it installing a package, making changes to, files. You're going to want to be the super user. Otherwise, you're not going to have access to anything. If you have friends or family or a guest account that you want to add in there, they don't necessarily need access to that. So we're going to go with no when adding theirs. That's just my recommendation. Confirm and exit. Profile. Now, this is going to be one of those scenarios. We're going to go ahead and do type and then desktop. This is going to be one of those scenarios where my bias does kick up. I prefer to have KDE Plasma or XFCE, right? These are my two kind of known desired environments to operate in. And then if we want to go with something that's a little bit more simplistic for a friend that I was able to meet, we're also going to install Cinnamon. So we'll take a look at a few different options that exist inside of that. If you want to get into a tiling window management or tiling window manager, you can also go with something like Hyperland or Sway. Those are two of the more common options. We're going to go ahead and click enter, and it's got all of those packages that are getting installed. When it comes to graphics drivers, this is a very important portion. NVIDIA proprietary. If you have an NVIDIA graphics card and you want to play video games or do any type of video editing with DaVinci Resolve, things like that, you have to have the proprietary NVIDIA drivers. If you do any of the open source, it's not going to work. For me, I have an AMD card. I'm just going to go ahead and select AMD. Our grader is going to stay as SDDM, especially if you're working with something that's got like a tiling window manager like Sway or Hyperland. You're going to want SDDM, at least from my experience, playing with it very little. It works best. That's just my experience. Audio, we're going to go ahead and select Pipewire. There's a lot of stuff that's being written around Pipewire. It's kind of the new kid on the block, and it has a lot of advancements over the top of using Pulse Audio. If for some reason you have an application that needs Pulse Audio, it's really easy to install additional audio controlling software. All right, kernels. I'm going to go with the LTS kernel instead of doing the more advanced, constantly updating, rolling release, because that's how Arch Linux works. There's not really a version. So like Fedora 41 just got surpassed by Fedora 42. And so there's a whole upgrade process to go from 41 to 42. Arch Linux doesn't work that way. Everything is updated when you run the command to update Arch Linux. So when it comes to this, we're going to just go with the LTS kernel because it's going to be more minute changes, not anything hyperly drastic. Network configuration. We're going to use Network Manager. We're using KDE Plasma. It's going to have a graphical user interface for that Network Manager. Just going to work best. Additional packages. Now, I got reminded on last night's stream that you can actually use /. So the question / and we're going to type in Linux -firmware to add Linux firmware. All right. Then we're going to do /Steam. Nope, it doesn't want to show Steam in there. What was the other thing then? There was one other thing. Oh, that's right. / and then we're going to do Flatpak. And select that. We're going to want Flatpak because we're installing this from the perspective when it comes to KDE specifically of you're new to Linux, we're going to be getting a little used to the idea of running inside of a terminal, but we don't want to separate ourselves out completely. We're more used to the whole older world where we go to a website like discord.com and grab the executable file. That's not really how Linux works. So we're going to go ahead and do a little bit of hand holding until you get used to using something like a terminal. It's really simple, very easy. Time zone. All right, I'm going to select Eastern because that's where I'm at. And that's it. We're going to go ahead and click install. Would you like to continue with these? Yeah, we want to continue. We want to start. We want to go down that adventure. All right, we're going to go ahead and click yes. Now, I will let you know that there's going to be a situation where it says that it wasn't able to find firmware of certain things. It's going to pop up multiple times. It's going to say like AST, unable to find firmware. Those are largely irrelevant to you. If there was that hardware in your computer, guess what? It would have been able to find the firmware for it. It's just part of the script. Those things are kind of relevant largely to things like server environments. Adding them in can be done, but it provides you no net benefit. All right, once this installation is finished, we'll be back with you guys. All right, so this is where we're left at. Would you like to chroot into the newly created installation and perform post-installation configurations? You do not. You don't want to do that. You know why? Because that's a good way to break stuff. I've broken stuff a few times doing that. All right, we're going to go ahead and type in reboot, and that's going to go ahead and reboot our system. Now, I'm going to go ahead and spam the boot menu key. I'll put right here what the boot menu key options are again, just in case you forgot what yours was. So this way we can go ahead and make sure that our Windows environment is still intact. Because otherwise this video is completely pointless and I need to figure out what else is wrong. Oh, look at that. Windows Boot Manager. It still exists. All right. We'll be able to boot into Windows. So I did find the error that I had made a mistake with. So that's fantastic. We're here. We're booted into Windows. Alrighty. So we're going to go ahead and restart. We're going to hold that shift key, click restart, and it'll probably take longer this time. Please wait. Yeah, it's taking longer this time, but that's okay. All right, use a device, and now the USB drive pops in. Oh, thanks. It's going to show up as UEFI ISO or OS ISO OS. We're going to go ahead and click that. It may show up different for your computer. Everything's kind of subjective. Come on. If you want to go ahead and watch streams with us in the future, I do these installs live, which means all the gaps and mistakes that happen, you can see them yourselves. And no, I still have not figured out how to make it not green. Alrighty. So Arch Linux is what we're going to go ahead and select. Click OK. And it's going to run through a bunch of hacker script. While it loads up, we'll greet you once we're at the Arch login. All right, so we're here at the login for Arch Linux. So first things first, what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at sessions here. This has a few of the other options that are here. I'll go ahead and show you what those look like later on. But what we want to do on my end is log into Plasma Wayland. All right, because that's going to be all of the other stuff that I wanted to show you to make things easier. But I'll show you the other desktops here before we end this video. So we're going to type in our password. Oh, I typed it in right this time. All right. You can go ahead and read through this Welcome Center portion. I don't need to. So first things first, when it comes to Linux, usually once you finish doing an install, you're going to want to go off and update the system. When it comes to Arch Linux, though, there's no update. It already comes updated. So to show that off here, we're going to show that everything is up to date. There's nothing to do because everything gets compiled from the most recent sources. All right. So we're going to learn a little bit about the terminal. Then I'll show you a few options that are going to be beneficial for you. When it comes to this, though, the reason why we're going to be learning from the terminal is because some things just have to be installed this way. So sudo super user do pacman is your package manager, -s, capital S, that's going to be install. If we're going to remove something, we're going to do capital R. All right. And Steam. All right. So this is where this gets very, very important. This is why we're doing it through the terminal. Also because it just doesn't work if we do it through a flat pack. If you have an AMD card, you're going to go ahead and select this option. If you have an NVIDIA card, you're going to go ahead and select option 2, or the one that says NVIDIA Utils. If you have an Intel card, so one of the new ARC cards, you're going to go ahead and select option 5. All the other ones, kind of irrelevant to you. I have an AMD card, so we're going to select option 1, and we're going to press Y for yes, and it's going to go through a whole installation process. While that installs, let's go over here and take a look at Discover. If you did not go for the flat pack option, you're going to need to do the same thing here. Sudo super user do pacman package manager capital S and flat PAK flat pack, right? And press yes. It says reinstalling because it's reinstalling for me. All right. All right. So Firefox, I avoid Firefox. They burned some trust that I had in them. So we're going to ignore that. But this is essentially your store. So if you want to go ahead and take a look at anything related to games, it's a dark, dark world here, but you can. If you want access for anything that involves like internet, take a look through it. We have a FileZilla, which is for FTP. We have LibreWolf, which is a web browser. We've got a bunch of options. We have a torrent software, which is transmission. All right. When it comes to Discover, this is essentially your store, your Microsoft store, right? We can go ahead and look for Chrome. It's going to give us Google Chrome option, right? Avoid anything that says unstable, right? So we have unstable. The unstable, it's a developer mode, right? But we can install Chrome. If we want something that's not Chrome, but what Chrome is based on, we can do Chrome EOM. Chromium web browser is what Google Chrome is built on top of. This is my default go-to if it's not anything related to content creation. But if you look down here, there's no web browser that's installed. We don't, like normally in Windows, you would see Edge is installed here. That's because we don't have a web browser when we first get into Arch. You have to install the packages. Everything has to be built by you. But because we had already done the Flatpak option during the installation process, Flatpak is already incorporated into the system. If you had to install it because you didn't do it earlier, if you click leave, log out, then log back in, that will then could you cooperate for me? That will then make it to where things like from the Flatpaks actually get installed. But there's our web browser. If we want to do something like Discord, we can install that here. Or we can do Discord by doing sudo. You'll start noticing that there's a pattern here. Pacman, package manager, -s for capital S for install, and Discord. Enter our password and press Y. And then it just downloads it for you because it's already inside of the repository. So package manager already knows where that's located. This is a non-flat pack version. There are certain applications that there are certain applications that can only be installed as flat packs. They don't make them any other way. That list is rather small, but you do run into that from time to time. Some people don't like flat packs. My opinion when it comes to flat packs is this: if there's anything that can make your life easier, especially for adjusting to being inside of the Linux environment, use that. It's valuable to you. It's something that you're going to have as a net benefit. And then over time, if you then go through and start to learn how everything works and you start using the terminal more because it's something that you grow to love, it's not necessarily something that you love off the bat, then you're reducing your dependency on that and using Linux the way it was meant to be used. But if somebody has a problem that you're using flat packs, ignore them. They're not worth your time. Okay, so there's that. We're going to go ahead and load up Steam. And then I'm going to show you guys how the games perform on Steam. Oh, one thing I forgot. Sudo pacman -S. And I'm going to type in Mango HUD, right? Mango HUD is going to give us a nice little FPS counter, CPU and GPU usage. It's a little bit bolder and brighter. So once we get loaded in and get Steam logged in, I'll show you guys how to use Steam inside of Linux, and then we'll be off to the races and testing some video games. All right, so we're logged into Steam here. If we go to the top left-hand corner, click on the Steam button, go to Settings, and then we're going to go down to Compatibility right here. And we're going to turn on Compatibility mode. Notice how it says Enable Steam Play for all other titles. There are titles that are automatically, are written for working inside of Linux itself. One of those titles is Stardew Valley, and there was another one that I had seen the other day, not Phasmophobia. No Man's Sky works natively inside of Linux, and then there was another one, Heartbound's native inside of Linux. Don't Starve is native inside of Linux, and Ark Survival Evolved is native inside of Linux. But other things like Hogwarts Legacy for Windows only. Inscription is native to Linux. Lethal Company is not. So what that's going to do is if we go into that settings option here, we do compatibility and turn that on, that then enables us to play games. So once that comes back, we'll go ahead and we'll launch a game. All right, and now that that's loaded, we can go ahead and take a look here. Things like Planet Crafters, we can play. What do I have that's not already installed? Because I did load into that into my pre-install drive. Makes these videos a little bit faster. Half-Life's already part of that. Last Hope Bunker, that does not have a native Steam. Outer Wilds does not have a native Steam. So now those things are playable. Let's go ahead and load into Subnautica. Oh, cancel. I forgot. Right click, properties. And we're going to do Mango HUD %, command %. That's what you're going to use if you want to go ahead and test it and you want to use Mango HUD. If you put in Mango HUD %, command %, it will actually load up into the game with the UI that shows all of that wonderful statistics like your FPS and your CPU and GPU usage. So when we're loaded into the game, after it downloads a few little updates that apparently I'm missing, we'll go ahead and get right into it. So if you're running into the same situation that I did where things didn't want to launch, you're going to want to press space. So it's Mango HUD space % command space % command %. There we go. Then things will actually launch. Alrighty. So here we are in this wonderful game. I absolutely love Subnautica. So we've got GPU usage of 64%, CPU usage at about 9%, and then frames per second 144. Now this is kind of a static environment, so that FPS counter is going to fluctuate quite a bit, but that's okay. The reason why I choose to show off something like Subnautica was I was using Outer Wilds, but it's too dark of a game, and there's a whole heck of a lot going on in Subnautica that we can use. If you go that direction, you'll find dry land. So Subnautica though does a fantastic job at kind of pushing the system a bit. We're gonna stay between 90 and like 130 FPS in this, and I really need to start playing some more Subnautica so that this way I can kind of enjoy some base building. We'll probably get into, I hear that the next Subnautica that comes out is supposed to be have the ability for multiplayer, which I play with my friends. So of course I'm going to want to do something with multiplayer. So I don't get a lot of single player game time these days. But yeah, all these fish take, rendering, and They have a cost, and we have some nice smooth usage. Your GPU usage is always going to be pinned at 100%. That's just really what it's going to do. It's going to use all those threads to render these games. Oh, that's so gorgeous. 2 moons. All right, so that is Subnautica. It's a pretty intensive game. You can also do things like Helldivers. I don't even know if I have Helldivers installed. Oh, there's a whole update I need to do. All right, let's go ahead and log out of this MoyDee account. And then we're going to log in with some Cinnamon. So we're going to go to the top here, and we're going to take a look at just standard Cinnamon. All right. So this is standard Cinnamon. It's meant to look kind of like, I have a dead pixel right here. You can't see it, but I can. It's meant to just look kind of like a basic Windows, like XP, Windows 7 era type desktop. I'm not a massive fan of it, but switching between workspaces isn't going to cause any issues for you, because it's just the desktop environment, right? So it's not going to, all of your programs are going to be there still. So we have Steam there. If you do Discover, because you can actually install Discover itself, it doesn't matter that it's not on KDE. Control-Alt-T gets you your terminal. So if we do sudo pacman package manager -s discover, enter our password, and it'll actually install Discover. So you can still use this regardless of which desktop environment you have. I think that this is a absolutely hideous environment to use, but some people like it, and we don't judge outwardly. All right, so Windows wasn't part of the grub list, right? You probably remember that from the first time, and we're going to want to set it up so this way Windows is part of that list for grub. So we're going to open up a terminal, type in Control-Alt-T for terminal, and we're going to type sudo pacman -s os prober, and then we're going to type in ntfs-3g. All right, and enter. OS Prober is going to go ahead and look for other installs, and then ntfs-3g is the NTFS partition file structure that Windows uses. Is going to be, it's like BTRFS or ext4. It's going to use that to it's going to be able to read that file architecture. Okay, so then we're going to type in sudo super user do nano, which is a text editor, /etc/default/grub. All right, and then we're going to scroll all the way down to find, let's see, let's see. Should be it towards the bottom. There we go. We're going to go ahead and uncomment right there. So this is a comment when we're using a hashtag. We're going to delete that. We're going to press Control S and then Control X. And then what we're going to do is we're going to do sudo os prober. And it found that Windows EFI. Now we're going to do reboot. All right, so what I've done then is booted into my BIOS settings. I will go ahead and put that thing back up at the top here where it says your boot menu key. To the right of that is also a list for your BIOS settings. So that's going to bring you into here. Somewhere in there, because I can't be with you for all of them. It's going to have some level of looking like this or like this, right? If it looks like this, you're going to want to find the option that says advanced mode. In my scenario, that's F2. And then we're going to go over to boot and we're going to find boot options, right? I've got all of these disks listed. We're going to change it from saying the boot menu is Windows Boot Manager, and we're going to change it to our Linux install, right? Then we're going to press F10 and yes. And that's going to go ahead and reboot, and then it'll boot into the Linux drive first and show the grub partition manager. Once that loads in, it'll take a second because we're changing some stuff. So stick tight with me. It's okay. We're here. I'm hoping that you're having a good day. If you are benefiting from any of these tutorials that I've been doing, do me a massive favor and click subscribe. It costs you nothing. You can always unsubscribe once you get annoyed with me. Just do me a favor and do that. Or just hit the like button. If you want to go ahead and like it, that means the world to me as well. All right, and now we're here. So we have default is going to be Arch. I figured out what I did wrong. I forgot to regenerate the grub menu because I'm a complete idiot. Hey, MoyDee from the future of where you were actually watching, I'm stupid. I completely forgot that we have to regenerate the grub config file, so this way it knows that this Windows boot is actually here. So to do that, we're going to type in sudo superuserdo grub grub / mk make config -o lowercase o /boot /grub /grub .config or cfg config. Now it's probably going to tell us that there's a problem. Let's see. Found. Okay, here we go. So that was the relevant one. All right, and here we go. Arch Linux, advanced options for Arch Linux. That's going to be like your fallback kernel. So if you make a mistake when you're editing the kernel, you can actually load the fallback kernel from here. I pressed escape too fast. Fallback kernel. So this way you have a backup that's going to run stable. All right, and then Windows Boot Manager, and we'll go ahead and press enter on that. And here we go. And that's it. You've installed Arch Linux. It's not that hard. Sure, there's mistakes that can be made. Even I made a simple mistake during this video. But that's okay. Mistakes are fine. That's why we have backups. In my situation, I have multiple computers in my house. In your situation, if you have an Android phone, you can actually just make a new USB drive right here by using the program called Etchdroid. It's free. It makes the USB file just fine. You just need to have something like a little USB to, USB-A to Type-C adapter, which if you have a Pixel, this comes with your Pixel. But yeah, it's not that hard. Mistakes are going to be made. That's part of the growing process and the learning process. So go ahead and enjoy yourself. We'll see you guys in the next one. Let's go play with Fedora.